Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. I'm joined with one of my good friends here, Emmy Simpson, my partner in crime with our Reiki services that we offer together. We should copyright that, Reiki. That was a slip up. If you guys don't know what we're talking about, that was a slip up I made a while ago because obviously Emmy is a Reiki healer and I'm a yoga teacher, and we do teach a combined course online with yoga and Reiki. And so we're just going to make it Reiki, like a celebrity power couple, Reiki. So I'm so excited though. Today is a video that we put together because we now, Emmy, we are a week away from the 60-day shadow work challenge. So today is January 14th, Saturday. So the 60-day challenge starts, and my words are getting twisted because it's Mercury retrograde, but it's January 21st, Saturday, January 21st is the start of the 60-day shadow work challenge. But before we get into that, guys, I want to go ahead and remind you guys that if you have not subscribed to Emmy's channel, Holistic Genie with Emmy, I told her, I pulled her channel up, and look, guys, 1.1, that's an 11. Like, that's such a God number, such a powerful number. And so if you have not subscribed to Emmy's channel, of course, it's going to be down in the description box below. Also, before we get into it and why I have the shared screen up, during the 60-day challenge, we are going to be doing a book club. And Emmy and Nicole are going to be running the Signal group and are going to be kind of taking care of that discussion with the book club. But I wanted to go ahead just to get the administration stuff out of the way. The first book of the first month or the first 30 days is going to be Polishing the Mirror. Both books by Ram Dass. This is one of my favorite books. I think this was the first book of Ram Dass's that I ever read. That's going to be the first book. And the second book is actually recommended by Emmy, and this is going to be Walking Each Other Home, Conversations on Loving and Dying, which kind of goes into one of what Emmy, Shanti, and Catherine Edwards all helped me create the 60-day challenge template. And it took a lot to do it. And Emmy wrote a beautiful portion of it based on the practice of grief and moving through grief, which is something I don't think any human being can escape, is grief. And so I know that this work is going to be very important. So I will put the links to these two books down in the description box below, guys. So if you want to go ahead and order them to join the shadow work challenge, the book group with Emmy and Nicole, as we go through this really, really, really intense work that we're about to get into. So while Emmy is doing what she's doing, let's go ahead and look here. I'll go ahead and share the beginning part. Now, as I told the group this morning on Signal, yesterday, Friday, if you had emailed me on the Shadow Work Challenge email, which is shadowworkchallenge@gmail.com, again, that will be in the description box below. If you had emailed me prior to yesterday, which was Friday the 13th, that email, I had to clean out the email box because I needed to keep myself organized. So go ahead and re-email me at shadowworkchallenge@gmail.com. I'm just going to go ahead and read you guys the opening letter to the Shadow Work Challenge, just so you guys kind of know what to expect. Dearest challengers, for the next 60 days, Esoteric Atlanta and friends will be hosting a global shadow work challenge. This challenge will last 60 days, and each day will hold a few activities for you to do to help you in your journey of healing and self-discovery. I'm so excited that you've decided to do this. Please know that all of these activities are for you and your experience only. No one will be watching you, judging you, or reading any of your journal entries. This is simply a private experience for you and you alone. Of course, you will be able to win prizes if you sign up for it. Your name will go into a raffle at the end of the 60 days. It is recommended that the exercise portion of the daily challenge be done first thing in the morning before breakfast and before the start of your day, but it is not doable. For now, you can do the exercise at whatever time of day that works best for you. Please note that this challenge is merely a template of what you can do to jumpstart your shadow work. With that being said, this is super important, guys, because this is how I am. If I have that personality, I'm Vata Pitta. If I don't get everything done, I think I've failed. And that in itself is your own shadow work, right? So if you don't get everything done in one day, don't give up. It's okay, all right? If that being said, if a day passes and you don't get in all the activities, don't stress. You just start again the next day, picking up where you left off. Don't stop because you had one bad day. You're human and humans are resilient. Now, for ladies, if you are on your cycle, I have given like a very low impact stretching class here you can do in exchange for the exercises provided on your period, or you can do the exercises provided. It's up to you. So if you need a daily warm up before your daily exercises, a link to Bryce's sun salutations and hip opening stretches are available during the daily challenge. I have links to those to help you warm up. Please note, if you have lower back issues, hip opening stretches will help. Please try to do them before you proceed with your daily workouts. For pregnancy, please be mindful. Depending on where you are in your pregnancy, you might want to do only the bar exercises, replacing them with more cardio exercises on the other days. Totally up to you. Everybody's pregnancy is different. So do not feel, if you are doing this challenge and you are pregnant, do not feel beholden to all the exercises. Don't feel beholden to all the exercises anyway, but especially if you're pregnant. What you will need for the challenge is the internet, a journal, and castor oil if you wish to participate in Friday night oil baths. There is one video that I'm providing that has optional of 2 to 3 pound hen weights. Please note that this particular video can be done without weights. You can obviously do the exercises without hand weights and still have resistance of your own body weight, or you can substitute them with soup cans or water bottles, or as someone said once, wine bottles, which may be the best resistance ever because you're really going to be gripping those suckers so you don't drop them and break red wine all over your carpet. So find the resistance that works best for you. You might want to take a photo, before photo on day 1 of the challenge, and then an after photo on the final day of the challenge so you can see how your body changed during the 60 days for your eyes only. This is only optional. Now, I personally advise against weighing. Weighing can cause an addiction to the numbers. The numbers are just numbers. They do not define. So I'm going to reiterate this. The numbers on this scale do not define the internal and the emotional work being done. Okay, some people can weigh themselves and they can still have that separation, where if you are somebody who is prone to having disordered eating, or if you have a weird relationship with food, I want you to be very vigilant with this and cut yourself some slack. I have not weighed myself since I was 27 years old. I only weigh myself now if I have to at the doctor or for medical purposes. I just don't do it. My mother had some issues with that when I was a child, and so I am aware that that can be an inherited karma, and so I have made that precaution for myself. But this is always up to you. Very important. If the trauma work becomes too overwhelming in this challenge, please reach out for help. Again, this is just meant to be something for you to jumpstart your own personal work. If it becomes a lot, please reach out to a trusted therapist or a healer like Emmy to help you navigate. Okay, I really want to, and we can talk more about this with the Artful Dodger, all that kind of stuff. I really want to tell you guys, there's going to be a lot of deep work. We're going to be talking about a lot of really heavy topics over the 60 days. And you're going to be doing this virtually. I mean, you have the Signal support group. You can always reach out to all of us who are sponsoring this challenge. But I know people have funny feelings about therapists. I loved my trauma therapist. Emmy is an incredible healer too. If you feel like this work is becoming a lot and you're feeling overwhelmed, please reach out to someone for help. Help, there's no shame in getting help. No shame. All right. Now, when I send this, if you have any issues pulling up the links, just copy and paste the links to the YouTube for all the exercises and stuff. Here is a link to the book club for the Signal Book Club, as well as the books I just showed you guys. There will also be an optional fast towards the end of this challenge. This fast is going to be run by Shanti from Aquarius Rising Africa, and this is optional. If fasting is not for you, a cleanse will also be provided. Again, this is optional. Please keep your health a priority. If you are prone to, again, disordered eating, like starving yourself, it is advised that you do not, or binge eating, if fasting is going to trigger an unhealthy response to your relationship with food, then do not do it. Okay, that is my advice as a professional. Is the fast is only going to work if it actually helps you with your trigger and does not intensify your triggers, if that makes sense. And we can talk more about that, Emmy, because I know that you have some experience with this too. Please note that fasting or cleansing is not for weight loss, nor should ever be used for weight loss. Okay. There's also going to be a 21 sun salutation challenge within the 60-day challenge that will be starting on February 27th. This challenge is not listed in this template. Shanti has a separate template for that. When we get closer to February 27th, which is quite a ways away from now, we will send out the template for those who want to do the sun salutation challenge. You can do the sun salutation challenge on top of the exercises provided in the template, but that is only up to you and your level of physical fitness, okay? And yeah, so here's a link to the Signal support group. Here's all the participating challenges. And yeah, so and here's the link to some tips from our last challenge if you need some help along the journey. And of course, we have lots of fun stuff that we are going to be presenting in this challenge. I'm almost done correcting all the edits, and so that should be available to go out to you guys tonight. One thing people have asked me, just getting through the administrative stuff before we get to the topic at hand, I think a lot of people think that I'm just going to email it out to people who participated in the 30-day challenge. No, you're going to have to contact me. Don't send me people's email addresses for me to then send to other people. I honestly, guys, we already have close to 200 emails sitting in the Shadow Work Challenge Gmail account from yesterday, from my announcement yesterday. Our last 30-day challenge had over 600 people. I'm expecting to get between 600 and 1,000 people for this challenge. And so if people were just to send me a bunch of emails, that's just a lot. That's chaos. So so it's just easier for me to keep everything organized and make sure everybody gets what they need by you reaching out to the email so I can just send it out. Also, as I said in the group this morning, if you are emailing the shadowworkchallenge@gmail.com, don't ask me a bunch of questions. I'm not going to be able to respond right now. Okay, it takes a lot to send these, a lot of time to send, because I have to go through each individual email to send the template out, and I don't mind doing it, but I'm not going to have the time right now to sit and answer a bunch of questions. And so what I'm thinking we can do later on in the challenge is actually have you guys go through those questions and answer them on a show. So, or you can send me a separate comment under a video if you have a question, but right now I just can't. It's already going to take the full week for me to get all these templates out, so I can't. Unfortunately, I'm only one person. I don't have an assistant. I wish I had an assistant. I got to train my dog how to do this. So I hope you guys understand. I just, at this moment, my most important thing is making sure everybody gets what they need to start. So, all right. Now that the housekeeping is done and over with, how are you today, Emmy?
I'm doing okay. I am so ready for this retrograde to be over. And even though it goes direct next week, or this coming week, Wednesday, I believe, there's still a post shadow phase. And since this retrograde was so intense, I imagine that the post shadow phase is still going to be affecting us a little bit. So I am like waiting for February, man. It can't come soon enough. Oh my word.
I mean, Emmy and I have both been on our own journey of shadow work and self-healing long before we opened up our YouTube channels where we weren't public figures. And we have, Emmy, we have been like crying to each other this week, haven't we? I want everybody to feel better about themselves. You know, no matter how being a human being is one of the most challenging experiences you will ever go through, that your soul decides to put you through. And no matter how deep you are into your work, your perspective on the work changes as you get more and more experience. You understand it more, but it doesn't take away the human emotion. It doesn't take away the struggle. And so I want to make that very clear. If you're embarking on shadow, there's no finish line. There's no finish line. It's just you getting the opportunity to sit in the shit, basically, and understand that you're not the shit, but you have to sit in it first before you understand it. So yes, yeah, but it's been a rough one, Emmy, hasn't it?
Yeah. And should I go in and talk about the Artful Dodger and the ego and how crafty it gets?
Yes, because that I do. So Emmy, in your words, and I'm actually going to put you on the screen. In your words, will you just explain to because you do this retrograde is messing with my words. You do such an eloquent job describing things and teaching things. Can you explain to the viewers right now when we say the Artful Dodger, what is that, first of all?
Okay, so the Artful Dodger is the ego, and the ego is an illusion. It is the story that we create of ourselves. And Aaron Abke says that the ego is the act of identifying. We're identified with our bodies. We're identified with our emotions. We're identified with the hurts and pains that other people have caused us. We're identified with this story character and all that that entails. Who we really are is Christ consciousness, and that alone. We are all the Christ, and we are at different stages of remembering who we are. And the ego will constantly try to come in and help us to reattach to the story, because that is the only way that the ego stays alive. I had an experience that really opened my eyes recently. Many of you know I have a part-time nanny job, and I have been wanting to let this job go for over a year, but I stayed because of certain situations. I'm not going to get into details, but I decided to stay. Well, we're at a point now where it would be easier for me to leave this job. And many of you know, I have had struggles with building and publishing my website. I have put this off. I've dodged this for over a year. And the timing of when I wanted to leave my job and build my website is the same. And I didn't realize that there was a huge energetic cord, and that my website was symbolic. It was symbolic of my growth into working for myself instead of working for someone else. It was symbolic in forward progress and forward movement. And the energetic tie that I have to working for someone else was preventing me from moving forward with this. When I realized that, I had a moment of extreme emotion, and I was just like completely bulldozed over by this realization that, oh my gosh, I am literally hanging on to the cord that is preventing me from moving forward. And so I did it. I faced my fear. I took the leap. I talked to both the parents and this family. I told them what was going on, because I'm doing so much. I have so much on my plate. It's starting to affect my mental and physical health. And I need to let something go. And the only thing that I can logically let go right now is my nanny job. And so I did it. I mean, I'm still there. I'm going to be there for another month or so until the person that replaces me is able to take over. But the cord was cut. The tie was cut. And almost immediately I had this urge and this like desire to work on my website. And you guys, I hate technology. I hate it. I have so little time that the thought of having to wrap my mind around learning something new, especially technology, pisses me right off. It's like, I don't have the freaking time for this shit. I just don't. But I don't have the money to outsource it yet. You know, that's the transition. That's part of the transition of going from working for someone else to working for yourself. You have all of these little things that you have to work through and go through. And part of that journey is working 24/7, because you still have to do everything with your house. You can't hire out a nanny. You can't hire out housework. You got to pay for that, or you got to do that stuff yourself, because you can't pay someone else to do it, because you're not bringing in that income to be able to afford that. So I do all the cleaning, I do all the cooking, all the errands, all the grocery shopping, all of the homeschooling, all of the stuff with my business, all the stuff with my YouTube channel. Like, I do everything. And I've added Ashtanga on top of it. And it's just,
your soul was like, hold my beer. Hold my beer.
So the fact that I had this desire to work on my website was indicative of the release of that energetic tie. And I was so excited. And I had this past Thursday, I had cleared my schedule. I was planning on taking the entire day and working on pieces that I'm writing on to put on my website and uploading all of pictures of all of my certifications from all my classes, and just, all these different things. I had all these creative ideas flowing, and this was the first time that that it wasn't a fight to get myself to do anything with it. And I was so excited about it. Well, Wednesday night, I was triggered. I was triggered so badly that it caused a CPTSD episode. My body went into full fight or flight mode. My blood pressure was 151/97 and my resting heart rate was 98. Like, my body was in the thick of it, and there is nothing I can do to stop that once it started. I just have to wait it out. And, there are certain things that I learned to do over the years when I was triggered to calm my nervous system down so I can get the process. I shortened the process to about 2 or 3 days. It used to be like a week or more that I would have to take to recover. And I realized yesterday in talking with someone about this that, holy shit, that was my freaking ego, because what I was triggered over was a nothing burger. It was literally a nothing burger.
So can we pause on this for 1 second? Because I want to kind of explain what she's saying. I want us to pull this apart even more, because I see this a lot in the spiritual world. As the real spirituality is not rainbows and butterflies. Real spirituality is like cow shit and cobwebs and haunted forest. Like, it's not, you don't get to the rainbows and butterflies until you've made your way through. You can't go around the forest. You got to go through it. You got to clean the muck off of you. So I was telling Emmy this morning, I took a bar class this morning, and in the middle of the bar class, Marnie Alton, whom I love, said something, and she says really poignant things a lot. Like, I can tell she's really worked on herself, because she's obviously made these self-realizations, and then she shares them in her teaching. She says, and I actually took a bill, I'm going to try to hide my address here, a bill, and I wrote it down in a Sharpie in the middle of it's not the nicest handwriting. So I was like, I have to pause this and write this down. Because we see this so much. And this is what Emmy is explaining. We see this a lot in the healing arts. If you've come this far and you're on the precipice of change, don't go back from where you came from. And the reason why that hit me so hard, it's what Emmy is saying. This is what, when we first walk into spirituality, sometimes I think we don't understand what the ego is. We think the ego, we think of like narcissism, we think of the jock, we think of like the big personalities. That's not what ego is. That's one flavor of an ego, but the ego can also be the quiet guy in the corner that's wearing a bunch of mala beads. The ego can also be a CPTSD symptom that's been triggered by the ego. And what do I mean by this? So when we come into healing practices or our shadow work, we want the change. We know something is wrong, and so we want to go on this path to make the change. But what starts to happen is when change starts to happen, good or bad, it's just change, we tend to go, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit, oh shit. And we run back to where it was awful, because where we came from, because we know that's the awful we know. We're comfortable with that awful. That's the
old pair of slippers. It's the old pair of slippers. It's where we've been.
So we know it, even though we might hate it.
Mm-hmm.
We know it. It's predictable. And the ego, when things are predictable, the false sense of self can thrive. But if we're coming into this precipice of change, and that change happens and we're not sure, Emmy doesn't know what's going to happen once her website is built. She knows her soul is calling for her to do this. But this soul, it's, we have soul contracts, but it's not like you're born and God comes down like, here's your contract, here's an outline. No, we're having to, and that's part of the journey is facing the unexpected and going into the unknown. But the ego knows that if you're relying solely on your faith, solely on what your intuition is not your ego. right? Your gut feeling is not your ego. That's your soul's voice. That's God's voice. So the ego goes, oh, hell no. I'm going to start pressing these, because the ego controls the mind, right? It controls the survival. And so it goes, I'm going to start pressing these buttons that I know this person has. So I have both Emmy and I both have CPTSD, which is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. And she's right. When you do have a CPTSD episode, you can't just go for a 5-minute walk and be fine. Like your body starts to shut down. I start shaking uncontrollably. I can't focus on anything. Sometimes I have to be held. I have a weight blanket. And so that sometimes the ego is that crafty, that where it will slyly come in and go, oh yeah, you think you're going to do something that's going to not require me? Oop. How about now? That's what Emmy's talking about. And this is, and I said, Emmy and I were talking about before we came on, the more you go down this path of understanding your own false sense of self, the craftier
Yes.
it has to get.
And I wanted to shift blame. I wanted to place the blame on my husband because he triggered me. And when I say it was a nothing burger, he said one thing, and 5 minutes later, he apologized for it. But I was already off and running. My ego took that because I wasn't aware of it. And that's how sneaky it gets. I've been in and out of recovery programs for 22 years. So I've been familiar with shadow work for a very long time. And I've been familiar with ego and the way it works and how it comes into play for a very long time. And it doesn't matter how long you've been doing this work, it will find another way. And then you have to come to that realization and move a little bit farther. And then it will find another way. And you have to come. There is never going to be an end to your shadow work. As long as you're in a human body, you're going to have to be dealing with ego. It's just what it is. You're never going to be done. You don't reach a space where, ta-da,
my ego's gone.
I'm
no,
good. It's gone. No.
It's just going to get your ego in the beginning of your journey is very noticeable. And you start to understand that, oh, so my ego is literally in a very basic sense, your ego is who you are, Bryce, Emmy, that's the false sense of self. That's the hologram that your soul has created, the Shakti and the Shiva, as we talked about with Cindy, for the soul to know itself. It's the tango, right? And the ego then, of course, comes into the nervous system. That's why pain is real, because we're using the ego and that resistance of the ego to trigger the friction needed. But so at the very beginning, you kind of go through that, oh my God, that crumbling of reality. Well, I'm not really Bryce. I'm not really this person. Well, then who am I? And then it's almost like the ego becomes a sniper for the special forces unit, because all of a sudden you've upgraded. So now that the your opponent is going to have to upgrade too. Right. And so it does get very, very tricky. That's where spiritual egos, the ego dresses up. Can we explain that too? I mean, what's a spiritual ego? What's the character the ego takes when we go into the realm of spiritual ego? Spiritually artfully dodging.
So when we come into the spiritual community and we're exposed to these different ideas of being, and this is just one example, of being a light worker or a starseed. And a lot of times light workers and starseeds have had really rough lives. We have been beaten down, we have been belittled, we have been abused, we have been in situations where we have been powerless, continuously powerless. And so we come into a spiritual community and we start finding people that we resonate with, and these labels that are going around, like light worker and starseed, and it can be very, very attractive to trying to find out who you are. Yeah. And we can almost, and this is where spiritual ego comes in. It's like, oh, I've been this nothing my whole life. Well, I'm actually something. I'm actually somebody. Oh, well, I'm a light worker, I'm a star seed. And then if I've seen people put so much emphasis on this, on titles like that, that they're presenting themselves as some type of, see, I don't want to step on any toes because this is such a touchy subject.
Well, I
You
see
know,
what you're so like you can be. I know that both Emmy and I, most of us watching our star seeds, most of us watching our light workers. Like this is part of what our soul decided to do. But when you solely identify as that, and it gives
Mhm.
you power, you feel power over others, then that's another trick of the ego, right? That's another trick of the ego. And so you have to there's a way to be these things without also being these things at the same time.
I'm going to bring what you just said, triggered a memory. I'm going to bring something that I said earlier back into the statement again. Aaron Abke says that the ego is the act of identifying. So, we're identified as these people who, before we came to the spiritual community, people who were oppressed and abused. We identified that. That's our story. Well, we come into the spiritual community. Well, now I'm a light worker. I'm identifying as a light worker. I'm identifying as a star seed. I am this. This is who I am. That's ego. That's spiritual ego. The act of identifying with anything other than the Christ. You are the Christ. Everyone is the Christ. We are all fractals of God. No one is better or worse or less than anyone else. It's just where we're at in our remembering and embodying that remembering.
And
Um,
that's why I mean we talk a lot off phone about like past life existences and stuff, and you can have a deep respect for your past lives because there was a lesson to be learned. But that's why I also, especially for people who are new to spirituality, I don't, as an Ashtanga teacher, I don't even want them like looking at that because it's just another label. It's just another label. And it was just another experience that your soul decided to do for it to know itself. And that's why I love in the yoga world, it's like the whole point of yoga is finding the nothing. Ram Dass has a documentary and a series talk where he talks about trying to be nobody. He says in the talk, like, we spend our whole lives trying to be somebody, be the
mm,
best lawyer, be the best attorney, be the best yoga teacher, be the best Reiki healer, be the best this, the best that. Well, what if you try to be nobody? What if you use these things, use the shadow work, use the experience as a very personal thing to be nobody? And I know that that sounds, for someone who's new to spirituality, that might sound depressing, but to me, that sounds actually liberating.
yeah,
Because
when you touch,
when you
when
go
you
back to the soul, you have no bondage.
yeah,
All these
it's very freeing. It's very freeing when you can let go of all the labels you're attached to. I was very much attached to the label of victim. I played victim very, very well. Very, very well. I endured stuff in my childhood that created this um created this attachment of trauma bonding in my nervous system. And from then on, I attracted those types of people in friendships, in partnerships, um, in work collaboration. I attracted the energy signature I was putting out. And it's just so freeing when you can let go of the identity. I'm not a victim. I'm not a victim at all. I am I am a fractal of God like everyone else on this planet, living out the story of Emmy.
yeah.
That's it. And I'm trying to, learn about myself through this filter. I'm just a filter.
Yeah.
This
Oh,
is
that's a
just
beautiful way
one.
to say it.
Yeah.
And that's one thing that bothers me about a little bit about our community, our quote unquote truther community, is that we're so attached to the story of this timeline. And true spirituality will tell you that being happy and being at peace is you internally being at peace despite what's happening outside of you. So I've said it before. What if you found out that nothing was going to change for another 10 years? Are you at peace with that? Because if you're not, then there's where your work lies. Is how do you find that peace within you when everything else is so chaotic outside of you? And are you looking for, that's one thing that I blame a lot with the church and a lot of religions, is that it's giving you an external, your salvation, quote unquote, your peace is only given to you from something outside of yourself. Which actually, that's not what Yahshua taught anyway. Yahshua did not teach that. He taught you that heaven was inside of you, and so was hell. They both were equally inside of you. So when we look, and I know I said this to you, Emmy, like one realization I had like a couple weeks ago was, are we replacing Jesus with the white hats to bring us salvation? Because if you're waiting for, and I know this is going to make probably going to get a lot more death threats from this video, but oh well. If you're waiting for somebody outside of you to bring you what you think will fulfill you, then you're going to be waiting for the rest of your life. It's no different. What do they call drug addicts? They're chasing the dragon. You're going to be chasing the dragon for the rest of your life because nothing outside of you is ever going to heal you. You have to heal yourself. And you do that by leaning into the dancing in the shadows, taking a long, hard look at yourself. And that ego is going to artfully dodge, and it's going to try to fight you at every step of this journey. It's very crafty, it's very sneaky. But in saying that, there's your resistance. If Emmy had not had the situation that she had this week, she learned more about herself in that process when she realized what was going on. So in that way, thank you, ego. Thank you for showing me something else about myself. And yes, as we were saying, the ego can cause all sorts of physical limitations, all sorts of physical reactions in order to stop you. I see the art. We were laughing earlier this week. I totally, my spiritual, my Artful Dodger, my ego got real crafty this week in a different way from Emmy, where I got up in the morning and as I say, I kind of piddle around for a little bit before I get on my mat. And I had the show Special Forces on because it's all these celebrities doing this Marine military type training. And I started watching it, and the whole time my ego was like, look at that shadow work. Man, I want to do what they're doing. This is incredible. And my fucking mat was sitting right there waiting for me. And all of a sudden I realized the time, and I was like, well, holy shit, I have to now go take a shower because I have a show with Shanti soon. Like, and my Artful Dodger was like, we're going to watch other people getting their asses kicked and see what's coming up for them. And we're going to remark on how great they are and how we want to do this ourselves instead of actually getting on the fucking mat and doing it. And as you know, today, guys, like when Emmy and I were kids, like the TV show came on when it came on. And if you weren't home to record it on a VHS, you missed it. But that's not true today. I could have watched that episode after I was done practicing. But my Artful Dodger was like, no, we're going to watch it at 5 o'clock in the morning because that's when because that's when everybody watches TV, right? And ignore the fact that your yoga mat is literally sitting right there waiting for you to do your own. So you're going to remark on how you want to do this. And I find this a lot too. Like people will do that. They will, how many times have people joined a yoga shala or gone to a Reiki person and then they back out because their intention, their ego is like, let's do this, we're going to do this, and then all of a sudden, let's not do it. It's a bypassing, right? And so with that being said, for you guys doing the 60-day challenge, knowledge is power, knowledge protects, and knowledge is infinite. The only person that's really going to be able to calm the beast of your ego is you, right? And so if you're not aware of what that looks like, then if you're not aware of what it looks like, it's going to have an easy job. But make it hard for it, make that ego work for it. Like make it like and then you challenge it, and and we see it a lot. I see it a lot with injury, and I wanted to cover this as well. Because I've gotten some more questions about injury. And I'm not saying that that you don't modify. Yes, if you've injured yourself, absolutely you're going to be modifying in your exercise. Okay. I'm not saying that you're going to break your ankle and then go run a marathon. That's ridiculous. Um, but a lot of times people will use injury as the Artful Dodger will come in and say, oh, well, we sprained our ankle, so we're not going to do anything for a while. No, well, your arms are still okay. You can do arm stuff, weight stuff.
I
You
used
know,
that. I used that when I first started a few months ago with Ashtanga. I was like, oh, you know what? I've had major abdominal surgery. There's a lot of ab work in Ashtanga. I shouldn't be doing this. Well, that's a bunch of bullshit. I just got myself some compression tank tops, so I have like a built-in belly brace. I'm fine.
yeah, you
I'm
even asked me.
fine.
I was like, "Oh, people wear braces all the time. They wear knee braces. They wear, it's But of course, like so, Emmy, because she's had those issues. If she were my student in Atlanta, like if she were coming to the Shala, I would want to know those things because that informs how I teach her. So obviously, I'm going to be aware that there is a gross body, a physical body weakness because of, and there's probably going to be emotional stuff come up from it too, because that's all traumatic. Anytime your body gets hacked open, that's a trauma, you know? And so Emmy, we had a conversation off camera this week about Kundalini. And I've told you guys that my back bending, I've punched a teacher coming out of a back bend. It's been, when before I started Ashtanga, when I was doing the fake yoga, they would, because I'd had back surgery, they would tell me not to do back bending. But when I got into Ashtanga and I said, oh, I've had back surgery, they were like, oh, then more back bending. That's where we focus with you. And I was like, fuck, I punched a teacher and all this. But that's where I've had the sensation of Kundalini is in deep back bending. So these issues that you have in your body, first of all, your body is made to change. And so nobody is ever going to go through life or any type of exercise program without experiencing some sort of injury. But the way we see it in Ashtanga yoga is that injury, trauma is a teacher. It's not a bad thing. Now, again, we don't want to be reckless in our practice, but we also want to be like, okay, so I keep hurting my ankle in this practice. What is that telling me? What do I need to learn? What is my psyche trying to tell me? Let me investigate this more. David Grieg has a beautiful video about it where he talks about like there is karma stuff that's going to have to come up, and that might result in you having a shoulder injury for a little bit because there's a karmic issue there, right? That you need to look at. And karma is nothing to fear. It's just cause and effect. It's just your work. It's what you signed up for. It's your lesson.
Your body will not lie. What prompted me to look at my ego with the PTSD trigger is some muscle issues around my right hip. Well, the hip is all about moving forward and forward movement, and it's your foundation. It's where you're going. And the right side is masculine. Technology is masculine. It's like, holy freaking shit, are you kidding me? Like my ego just tripped me right the F out. Like I am blown away at how this happened and how this works. It's just like, wow.
Because the body doesn't lie, you guys. We can
No.
lie to ourselves all we want, but the body's never going to lie. And so let's say like you're someone who's constantly dealing with knee issues. Well, have you looked into what knee issues mean spiritually? What is your body trying to communicate with you? And that's not necessarily a bad thing. That might be where you're going to grow the most, where that friction, that spark of light happens. So if you end up having an injury and you find yourself trying to send me an excuse or send me an email as to why you can't do something because you stumped your big toe, is that your soul, sending that email or giving that excuse, or is that you giving into the Artful Dodger? That's for you to decide. If you
And the level of self-honesty, I mean, you can convince other people of things. You can be honest with other people, but when you have to get to this level of honesty with yourself, it is really it really perpetuates your growth when you can be honest with yourself, because you could get away with a lot of stuff. But when it comes to being honest with yourself about things, it's like,
you stop enabling yourself. You
yeah,
stop enabling yourself. Yeah, and I think that we use sickness, we use injury. I mean, the Artful Dodger is literally going to find anything it can. It's going to be digging through all of the filing cabinets of your life. You know, I people use their age a lot as an excuse, and you know, if you're in your 80s, obviously you're not going to go run a marathon your first week of doing this challenge. Not saying it's not possible if you're in your 80s. I know a lot of people in their 80s who are very physically fit, but you can still do a 10-minute bar video. You can still start the process, you know, because it is quality over quantity anyway, you know. So it's just it's a tricky one. You know,
mhm.
people will intentionally, I've seen this happen a lot, they'll intentionally stay up late, blaming that on something else just so they don't have to get up and practice in the morning because they didn't get enough sleep. Well, who's forcing you to stay up late?
Yeah,
Investigate
and
that.
ask for help too, because sometimes, especially when you're first getting into this, it's good to bounce things off of other people. Um, because sometimes you shouldn't practice, and you should really know the difference between
Yeah.
types of pain. Like muscle pain and soreness and ligament and tendon pain and soreness is normal in a growing exercise practice. That's normal. But kinds of pain that causes searing, shooting hot things inside your joints, really, that is an indication that there is something else that needs to be, and you should not push through that. So
Yeah.
if you feel like you have an injury and you feel like you're using that as an excuse not to exercise, just bounce it off some other people. Ask questions, ask for help.
Join
Asking
the
for
signal
help
group.
huh?
Join the signal group
Yeah.
and ask in there.
Asking for help is a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness.
Yeah. And I will say, so when my arthritis got really bad around the same time I broke my sacrum, my teacher in India put me on a 4-day a week exercise or practice schedule versus 6. So he wanted my body to rest 2 extra days during the week because of what I was going through. So there is, and you can always ask, but I would definitely, so in like Ashtanga yoga, we say that you're not allowed to have an opinion on the practice for the first 10 years because you're still learning so much, and the Artful Dodger comes in. And so I would say that that's what Emmy's saying is really good advice. Just ask someone. So if something is confusing you, just to make sure it's not the Artful Dodger, to make sure it's not yourself tripping yourself up, ask. Ask away. You know, ask away. You know, we talked about this last challenge. A lot of times people will use their kids as an excuse not to do something. And every single person at AYA has children, and they come in every morning. You know, so instead of, you know, it might be that you do have a child that needs your attention early in the morning, and therefore you might have to shift your practice time to a later time. That's okay. You can do that. But don't put that responsibility off on your children or off on someone else, because if it's important to you, you will make time.
And yes, and you can train, I don't want to say train your kids, but it's almost like you can train your kids to respect your time. When I first started in my recovery program, one of the disciplines we do is a half an hour of quiet time in the morning. Well, my son was 3 at the time, and a 3-year-old needs attention in the morning. And I really wanted to devote the time and effort to this program. I really wanted to put the work in, because people before me said, if I put the work in, I will see change, and I wanted to change. So what I ended up doing was he couldn't read yet. So I drew pictures of what he could do, and I put it in a plastic sleeve on my bedroom door, and I taped it to my door when I was in there having quiet time. And it took probably a few weeks of coming to the door when he would have his little meltdown and whatnot and say, buddy, look at this sheet. This is what you can do when mama's in here. I'm going to come out. Don't worry about, I'm going to come out. Okay. And just the repetition, and being willing to be interrupted, being willing to calmly tell him, hey, no, this is what mama's doing right now. And he got used to it.
Yeah. Well, you proved to him that you're coming back. You proved to him that, that it will be over and you're coming back. I mean, we have people that bring their kids into the shala and they sit at the wall and they color while their parents practice. And I know a lot of you in the last challenge, your kids join you. They were old enough, they joined you. And that's incredible because and think about this, Emmy. I mean, think about this, just hit me too, is like, because your child was 3 when you started doing that. Your kids learn by watching you. So what an incredible opportunity for your youngest child to watch you.
Oh yeah. He goes alone by himself when he's angry because he knows that works. Quiet time works for him. And so he will, about the worst outburst I get, I mean, he yells and makes noise and stuff. And he'll say, the worst he says is, I want alone time. Leave me alone. Okay. All right. Thank you, buddy. You go do you and come back and talk to me when you are able to talk and use your normal voice. And that's what he does. And I let him have his little outburst because he knows what he can do to go calm himself down. And he goes and takes 10, 15 minutes and he comes back. I'm sorry for being mad at you, Mama. It's so
Can you imagine he's going to make the best husband and father one day because he had that. I mean, that's what be the change you want to see in the world, right? Like, and so if your kids are seeing you take time to heal yourselves, guess what they're going to do? Guess what they're going to learn how to do? Heal themselves. And I want to make this clear. Your child came to this earth with their own karmic journey. So don't feel like by me saying that, it means you're screwing your kids up. We all decide to incarnate into human beings to go through our own lessons. And so you are giving your children the tool that they're going to need to go through their own lives. And that's amazing. That's one thing I'm really grateful. My mother exercised a lot growing up. Now, yes, she did have some eating issues, but she taught my sister and me the value of exercise. And yes, this was before I understood that exercise was a modality of healing. But I learned that by watching her. She was on all these tennis teams. I remember sitting at the back of the jazzercise gym, watching her do jazzercise. Like I added Richard Simmons back to this baby because she did. I remembered watching her doing those Richard. So my mother gave us that. My sister's very active. So even though my sister doesn't do spiritual stuff like we do, she's very active. And it's because I think it really is because we watched our mother do it. And that became, we're using exercise as a way to heal your soul. But even if you're just using exercise as a way to make your body healthy, the body is where the soul lives. The body is the great instigator of the soul in this life. And so even if your husband and your spouse just use exercise simply as a way to make their health better, we already know, most even like people who are on a spiritual journey know that exercise can relieve stress. And so it's just on the very simplest of levels before you get complex into the spiritual stuff. You are just setting such an incredible, by taking that time to show your child that you're going to do a 30-minute bar video or you're going to do a half an hour of yoga. Holy shit. Your kid might not like it now, but that's going to leave imprints on them. And when they're in college or when they have whatever happens to them in life, they're gonna be like, you know what? I need to go take a yoga class, or I need to go. And it's because you led by example. And so I really want to reiterate that with everybody because your kids are watching. And so let them see what it means to be a badass. And it takes courage to do this. It takes a lot of courage. I know I wanted to talk a little bit more about aerobic and anaerobic, but maybe we can do that in a second video the next upcoming week, because I think this is a lot to talk about with the Artful Dodger and all that kind of stuff. So, and I think we're about an hour now, so we might be over an hour. I never know. I could talk to Emmy all day, so I never know. Oh, but so guys, so if you have any questions about the Artful Dodger, let us know in the comment section below, and we will try to help you through that. Again, if you want to join the 60-day challenge, send me an email at shadowworkchallenge@gmail.com and just put I'm in. And once I get finished editing it up tonight, I will start sending the templates out. I will be putting up, so the evening before the next day, so Friday, this upcoming Friday, January 20th, I will be posting day 1 of the challenge on, which is Saturday's day. And then Saturday I'll post Sunday, Sunday I'll post Monday, and so forth. I think the participating challenge will also be doing that. So you'll also have a reference point from our YouTube channels. Last challenge, I did daily videos. I'm not going to be doing daily videos this challenge because it's 60 days. So it's a lot. So I'll probably be doing weekly updates or every few days. Emmy will be back on. We'll be talking about the subjects that we're talking about that week to give you guys kind of a feed to help you work through it, all that kind of stuff. So is there anything you want to end with, Emmy?
Oh, the very first day of the challenge is the very first group Reiki session. It's on the new moon. It's on January 21st, Saturday, January 21st at 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm going to create a Zoom link, and I can share it with, should I create all the Zoom links and put them in the ones that
If you want, send it to me. Yeah, just create the Zoom links and email it to me before tonight, and I'll add it to the template.
Okay.
For sure.
And then, yeah, and then I'll also post I'm also going to post a Zoom link on my social medias and my YouTube community page and in the Signal group as well, just to give people because I think I might create a separate group for people who are interested in doing the group Reiki. So I have a centralized place to keep it organized.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and the theme for this new moon is our 1 word mantra for the year. And then we're going to do a guided meditation and Reiki healing to embody that. So bring your journals, because I'm going to have a couple of journaling prompts for you to guide you to your 1 word. You know, everyone's going to have a different word. I mean, some of us might have the same word. I've already picked mine. But yeah, it's a really powerful, very helpful exercise, and I think that it would really be beneficial for people to do this. And it just so happened that it fell on the first day. Like, this challenge is just divine. It's all divine timing. Yeah.
All divine. All right. So Emmy will set up those Zoom links. She'll send them to me. I'll add them to the template. So you have the Zoom link on the template, and I'll also put it on my community tab as well, so you can also just click from there too. And these are all great tools. There's a lot in this challenge, guys, and so like I said, Emmy contributed a lot to this challenge. So did Shanti. We're all here to help you. So don't ever reach out for help if you need it. And these group shares with Reiki with Emmy are going to be an incredible way to get that support. Also, the Signal group is a great way to get support. Before we end, I'm just going to say one thing that Sri Swami Satchitananda says in his commentary of the Yoga Sutra is, if you're still trying to figure out the ego as clinging onto identity and separating it from the soul so you have a better understanding. And I think this is really what Sri Swami Satchitananda recommends. Start changing your vocabulary. Like when you're tired, instead of saying I'm tired, say my body's tired. When you're hungry, my body's hungry. When you're sad, my mind is sad. When you're happy, my mind is happy. And so you start to understand that these experiences on a very subtle level are all just created experiences for your soul to know itself, because your soul is that fractal of God that is always pure consciousness and pure love.
Exactly. And it can't be harmed.
Nope.
The essence of who you are cannot be harmed. So when we're stuck on identifying with pain, identifying with hurt, identifying with things that people have done to us, and we hyper focus on those things, and we create more and more and more hurt, like what my body did with the PTSD. I was putting an experience from the past and an overlay on top of the present when it was literally nothing. Nothing. that was so profound. I am still like,
Just shows you how clever that freaking ego is.
very, very clever. Very clever. So long as we're in a human body, we will be having to work on the identifications that we have. I love that definition of ego.
I do too. I
Abraham
do
gave.
too. And just know that, I mean, you're never going to transcend your ego. The minute you transcend your ego is when you die.
Hmm.
And you leave this ego behind, and guess what happens? Guess what
Get
happens?
a new one.
So, it's just, it is what it is. And it's just, that's why I love how Ram Dass just says, see, everything is interesting. Oh, what happened to Emmy? Interesting.
Interesting. Oh, that's so interesting.
So interesting that that's what happened. What happened to me? But mine wasn't as dramatic as Emmy this week with the whole TV show. But I thought it was hysterical once I realized what had happened. I was like, well, I'm a dumbass. Like, okay, you got me on that one, you Artful Dodger. You got me on that one. Like, I'll give you that. Like, that was really clever. That was so clever. So, but all right, guys. Well, we love you all. You guys can do it. This is amazing. I'm so excited to see the feedback, to see what happens to each and every one of you personally over these 60 days and collectively over these 60 days. You are the storm. There's nobody that can save you. You have to save yourself, which is so powerful. That's so powerful. So, all right, you guys, we love you and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Bye.